Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive. This time we're taking a look at something that's probably way more important than you think, the Employees Provident Fund Organization of India.
The EPFO.
The EPFO, exactly. We've got these two information booklets, one for employees and one for employers, and honestly,
Fascinating.
they are. Really interesting stuff in here, and by the end of this deep dive, you'll basically be an EPFO expert.
Yeah, you'll know all the ins and outs.
All the ins and outs. We're talking nominations, contributions, claims, closures, you name it.
Everything. Like a little mini law library just for EPFOs.
Seriously.
And-
But we're not just skimming the surface here. We're going deep, exploring all those little details and regulations.
Making sure you really understand it all.
Exactly. So if you've ever felt like, ugh, EPFO, what even is that? This deep dive, it's for you.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, even though it's all legal and stuff, it's written in a way that's easy to follow.
So true. They break it down step by step.
Yeah, anyone can understand it, even if you're not a lawyer or anything.
Exactly. I mean, one of the first things that jumped out at me was nominations. Like, it seems like a small detail.
Right.
But it can be a really big deal.
Huge implications later on. Think about it. Your EPF savings, they're meant to be a safety net, right?
Save you and your loved ones.
Yeah. So nominations make sure that if anything happens
That money goes where it's supposed to.
to the right people, gives you peace of mind knowing it's all taken care of.
Okay, so let's say I'm like a brand new employee, just starting my career.
Okay.
What do I need to know about nominations? Like, what's the most important thing?
Well, first thing, nominations, it's not just a one-time thing.
Okay, yeah,
Life changes.
it does.
And your nomination should change too. Getting married, having kids, even just moving those things can affect who should get your benefits, you know?
So you got to stay on top of it.
Exactly. Be proactive. Make sure your nominations are always current.
And thankfully, they've got that online portal.
Yes. So easy to use.
You can update everything online.
Anytime, anywhere. It's all about giving you control over your own money, you know?
Yeah, I have to admit, when I saw that getting married actually invalidates your old nominations, I was like, whoa, hold on.
Right. That's big.
That's a big deal.
It is. It just shows how important it is to really get these rules, you know? It's not just signing a form and forgetting about it.
Yeah, you got to know what you're signing.
Exactly. It's about making informed decisions.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about the employer's side of things. They've got some pretty big responsibilities here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And these booklets lay it all out, all the details.
Yeah, it's not just about taking money out of salary.
There's way more to it.
So much more.
Sure.
Okay, what's one of the key things employers have to do?
One of the biggest is Form 5A. They have to file it online.
Form 5A. What's that all about?
Basically, it gives EPFO all the info about the company, who owns it, where the branches are, bank details, everything.
Like a company profile, but for EPFO?
Exactly. And it's super important to keep it updated.
If anything changes,
Anything ownership, company name, address, bank stuff, even contact info.
you got to update Form 5A.
You got it. If you don't, it can cause problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Delays in processing contributions, issues with those compliance audits, all sorts of headaches.
So it's really in everyone's best interest to just keep everything up to date.
Absolutely. Keeps things running smoothly. And actually, you know what's cool? EPFO is using tech to make it easier.
Oh yeah, like what?
Digital signature certificates, e-sign, all that stuff.
That's awesome. So they're modernizing things.
Definitely. Making it more secure and efficient for everyone.
That's great to hear. Okay, let's talk about the employees again. They've got responsibilities too, right?
Oh, for sure. They play a big part in all this.
So what's one of the most important things for employees to do?
Keep their UAN and KYC details updated.
UAN, that's the Universal Account Number, right?
Yep, and KYC is know your customer.
Okay. And why is it so important to keep those updated?
Well, think about it. If you want to file a claim and your info's all outdated, it's gonna be a mess.
Yeah, you'll be jumping through hoops.
Exactly. Delays, headaches, nobody wants that. When your UAN and KYC are current, everything just flows.
Makes sense. So it's all about being organized and making things easier for yourself in the long run.
Exactly. Taking control of your financial well-being.
And again, you can do all this online, right?
Yep, super easy. Manage your UAN, update KYC, track your contributions, all in one place.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've talked nominations, keeping those updated. We've talked about the employer's role with Form 5A.
Right.
And the employee side, making sure their UAN and KYC are accurate. Now let's get to the heart of it. Contributions.
This is where it gets really interesting and potentially a little confusing.
Yeah, I was looking at this earlier and I was like, okay, wait a minute.
It's a lot to take in, but don't worry, we'll break it all down.
Okay, so first things first.
Right.
What are we even contributing to? And what are the rates right now?
Okay, so the contribution rate is 12% of an employee's wages.
12%.
Yep. And it's split between the employer and employee, each putting in 12%.
Okay, so both sides are contributing.
Exactly. But here's the thing, that 12% gets divided further into different schemes.
Okay, so it's not just going into one big pot.
Nope, it's split up, each with its own purpose.
So let's unpack that a little bit. What are these different schemes and where does all the money actually go?
All right, so of the employer's 12%, 8.33% goes to the employee's pension scheme.
EPS.
Yeah, EPS. And that goes into account number 10.
Account number 10. Got it.
Then 0.5% goes to the employee's deposit-linked insurance scheme.
EDLR.
Yeah, EDLI. And that's account number 21. So that's for the pension and insurance. Now, the rest of the employer's contribution, the 3.67%,
Okay.
that, along with the full 12% from the employee,
So the whole employee contribution
the whole thing goes into the employee's provident fund.
to EPF.
Yep, the EPF. And that's under account number 1.
Okay, so we've got EPF, EPS, and EDLI, each with its own account number. And the contributions are split between the employer and employee in specific ways.
You got it. It's all laid out really clearly in the booklets.
Okay, that's good. I know I'm going to have to look at this a couple of times to really get it.
It's a lot to absorb, yeah.
It is. Now, there's one thing that seems kind of weird at first. All contributions are rounded off to the nearest rupee.
Right.
Why did they do that?
Well, you might think it's not a big deal, but over time, it can actually affect how much money you end up with.
Really?
Yeah, it's all about compounding. Even small amounts add up over the years.
So it might seem like a small thing now, but it's worth keeping in mind for the long term.
Exactly. You want to make sure you're getting the most out of your savings.
Okay, let's move on to something that's probably on a lot of people's minds. Member claims. This is how you actually get to your money, right? Whether it's for retirement, a big life event, or if something unexpected happens. So how does this whole process work?
The booklets lay it all out, step by step, and they really emphasize doing things online. It's faster, less paperwork.
And we talked about the UAN and KYC. Those are crucial for online claims, right?
Absolutely essential. They're like your keys to unlock those online claims, make sure everything goes smoothly and securely.
Okay, so let's say I need to file a claim. What kind of claims are there? What do I actually have to do?
Well, the most common ones are withdrawal claims, transfer claims, and pension claims. Each has its own rules, who's eligible and all that.
And that's all detailed in the booklets.
Yep, it's all there. But basically, you fill out a form, online or offline, and you provide any documents they need to support your claim.
And I noticed they really emphasize being accurate and complete on those forms.
Oh yeah, that's super important. If there are mistakes or things are missing, it can cause delays.
So any tips to avoid those delays?
Double check everything. Make sure your name, your employment info, your bank details, everything's correct. And if you're not sure about something, just ask EPFO. They're there to help.
Okay, that's good advice. Be thorough, be accurate, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, what about the employer's role in claims? What do they have to do?
They're really important for transfer claims. Like if you switch jobs.
Your EPF has to move too.
Exactly. And it's the employer's job to forward those transfer claims to the right EPFO office.
So it doesn't get lost in the system.
Right. It's about making sure you get your money when you need it.
Okay, ready for a little dose of reality?
Always.
Let's talk about what happens when things don't go according to plan. The booklets get pretty serious about what happens if you don't follow the rules, especially when it comes to paying EPF late.
Yeah, there are consequences.
They don't mess around. So what happens to employers who miss those deadlines?
They have to pay penalties. It's all calculated based on how late the payment is.
So the longer you wait, the more you pay.
Exactly. They want to encourage everyone to pay on time.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a good motivator. And the booklets even explain how they calculate those penalties.
All the formulas are there. Very clear.
No room for confusion. Okay, let's switch gears again. What about closing a PF code? How does that work? And what if a business doesn't have any employees for a while?
So closing a PF code means you're basically saying you're not contributing to EPF anymore.
Okay.
You have to apply and give them documents to prove you've closed the business.
But what if you want to keep your EPF code just in case things change later?
There's an option for that. You can continue PF code without members.
So you're still registered with EPFO, even if you don't have employees at the moment?
Exactly. That way, if you start hiring again, you don't have to go through the whole registration process all over again.
So it's like a safety net.
Exactly. Just make sure you pay those minimum administrative charges to keep the code active, even without employees.
Okay, so it's like hitting pause instead of delete. Smart move. Okay, let's zoom out a bit and talk about duties and responsibilities in general.
Okay.
It seems like both employers and employees have a role to play in making this whole EPF thing work. What's the big takeaway here?
The big takeaway is that EPF is a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Everyone has their part to play, both employers and employees.
And it has to be a team effort.
Exactly. If one side drops the ball, it affects everyone, and these booklets really emphasize that.
And they make it clear that not enrolling someone, whether it's on purpose or by accident, can cause problems.
Big problems.
Yeah, for both sides. So everyone needs to be aware of their obligations.
Absolutely. It's not just good practice, it's essential.
Okay, so let's talk about getting help and finding information. The booklets lay out all sorts of ways to connect with EPFO, and some of them were pretty surprising.
Yeah, they've definitely expanded their options, made it easier for people to reach them.
Yeah, I was impressed. You've got the website, the help desk, the dedicated portals, all the usual stuff, but then they've got this UMang mobile app, which I've actually used for other government services, and it's really convenient.
It is.
And get this, they even have a WhatsApp helpline.
No way.
That's
amazing.
Isn't that cool?
It's so smart. People use WhatsApp all the time.
Exactly. They're meeting people where they are.
Yeah, making it easy to get help.
I love it. And speaking of helpful resources, we have to mention that FAQ section. It's like a goldmine of information. So seriously, it answers all those common questions that come up.
All those little things that can trip you up.
Exactly. It's like having an EPFO expert right there with you.
Oh,
Okay, ready for a rapid-fire round of FAQs.
hit me with them. Let's do it.
Okay, first up, can an employer deduct their share of the EPF contribution from an employee's wages? I feel like this is important to clarify.
Super important. And the answer is a big no. Not just a bad idea, it's actually a criminal offense. They're serious about protecting your savings.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, what if the employer is late with those contributions? Does the employee miss out on any interest?
Good news is, no. You still get the full interest, even if your employer messes up. It's calculated for every month, right on time, regardless of delays.
Oh, that's good. So the employee is protected?
Yep. But the employer, they still face those penalties we talked about.
Right, those hefty fines.
It's like a you snooze, you lose situation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, here's one that always trips me up. Can an employee refuse to contribute to the pension fund?
This one's a little tricky. Technically, no, you can't refuse. But the key thing to remember is the pension contribution comes from the employer's side, not yours.
Ah, okay, so it's not like I'm opting out of my own contribution.
Right. Your 12% goes straight to your EPF account.
Okay,
The pension part is separate. It comes from the employer's contribution.
got it. So it's all about knowing where the money's coming from and where it's going.
Exactly. Different buckets for different things.
Okay, last one on the FAQs. What if an employee needs to submit a claim form, but their old employer, is gone? Can't attest to it. Happens sometimes, right? Companies close, people move on.
It does happen, but don't worry, they've thought of that. You can get the form attested by your bank instead.
Oh, that's good to know. There's a workaround.
Yep, no need to panic. They try to keep things flexible.
That's helpful. Okay, these FAQs have been super helpful, clearing up a lot of those little questions.
Glad to hear it.
So now that we've got the basics down, let's talk about some real-life situations employees might run into. Those tricky scenarios.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. Let's start with leaving a company. What happens to your EPF if the company hasn't been playing by the rules? Like, they've been late with payments, maybe haven't contributed the right amount. What can an employee do?
That's a tough spot to be in. But the main thing is, gather all the proof you can. Salary slips, employment records, anything related to your EPF.
Basically, build a strong case.
Exactly. You need to be able to show what they should have contributed. And don't be afraid to push back. Follow up with EPFO. Escalate if you have to.
Be persistent.
Yes, be persistent and know your rights.
And if nothing else works, you can always file a grievance with EPFO.
Absolutely. They have a whole process for that, online and offline.
That's good to know. There's a system in place.
They want to make sure things are fair.
Okay, here's another one I've heard about. What if there's a mistake in your EPF records? Like your name's misspelled or your birth date is wrong. How do you fix that?
It happens more than you'd think. But there's a process for that too. You submit a request to get it corrected, and you need to include documents to prove the correct information.
Like those KYC documents we talked about.
Exactly. Aadhaar, PAN card, things like that.
So it all comes back to having your documents in order.
Makes everything so much easier.
Seriously. Okay, let's switch over to the employer side. We talked about their responsibilities in general.
Right.
But these booklets really get specific about what they have to do. What are some key things employers need to be aware of?
It goes beyond just paying on time. It's about creating a workplace where everyone understands the rules, where everyone who's eligible is enrolled.
Yeah.
It's about transparency and ethical behavior.
So it's not just about avoiding those penalties.
It's about doing the right thing for your employees.
Creating a culture of compliance.
Exactly. And the booklets also talk about how important it is for employers to educate their employees.
Oh yeah, make sure everyone understands how EPF works.
Right. Explain the benefits, explain the responsibilities. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
That makes a lot of sense. When employees understand, they can be more proactive about managing their accounts.
And securing their future.
Speaking of which, let's talk nominations again.
Yeah.
Can't emphasize this enough, right?
So crucial. People often forget about them, but they can make a huge difference for families down the line.
Yeah, if something unexpected happens.
You want to make sure your savings end up where you want them to go.
Not tied up in legal battles or anything.
Right. It's about peace of mind, knowing your loved ones are taken care of.
So check your nominations regularly, especially after big life changes like getting married, having a baby, anything like that.
Exactly. Take control, be proactive.
Okay, before we move on, let's talk about those penalties for late payments one last time. The booklets really lay it all out, and it's clear they mean business.
Yeah, those penalties are serious.
So walk us through it. How are they calculated?
Okay, so if you're up to 2 months late, the penalty is 5% per year.
5%, even for a short delay.
It starts adding up right away. And then between 2 and 4 months late, it jumps to 10% per year.
Okay, wow, that's a big jump.
It escalates quickly. And if you're more than 4 months late, it can go all the way up to 100% per year.
Ouch. It's gonna hurt.
It's a big incentive to just pay on time.
Makes sense. You don't want to mess with those penalties.
Yeah.
It's about respecting the deadlines, being responsible.
And maintaining that good relationship with your employees.
Exactly. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. FAQs, tricky situations, employer duties, those penalties.
We've been through a lot.
I'm feeling way more informed already.
Me too. Hopefully our listeners are too.
Knowledge is power, especially with something as important as EPFO.
Well said.
All right, listeners, ready for the final stretch. We're going even deeper, exploring some of the most fascinating aspects of EPFO.
Buckle up.
All right, so we've been through a lot. Nominations, contributions, claims, the whole 9 yards. But before we wrap things up, I want to take a step back.
Zoom out a bit.
Yeah, zoom out, look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
This EPFO thing, it's not just some small operation, right?
No way. We're talking millions of employers all across India,
The whole country,
all connected by these rules, these benefits.
like a massive web.
It is a huge system, and it has a big job protecting the financial future of so many people.
A huge chunk of the workforce.
Exactly. And it's constantly changing, adapting to the economy, how people work, all of that.
Which is why we have to stay up to date.
Right.
What we knew a few years ago might not be true anymore.
Things are changing all the time. EPFO's updating their systems, their processes, the rules themselves. They're using technology, making things simpler, making information easier to find.
Speaking of which, I was so impressed by all the ways you can contact EPFO now. Like, you got the website, the help desk, all
The
that.
usual channels.
But then there's that Umang mobile app, which I actually love.
So handy.
Super convenient for all sorts of government stuff. And then, get this, they have a WhatsApp helpline. Seriously.
It's amazing.
I know.
So smart.
They're meeting people where they are.
Making it so easy to connect.
Okay, and we can't forget that FAQ section in the booklets. Seriously, that thing's a lifesaver.
It's gold.
It really is. It answers all those questions you just can't find anywhere else.
All those little details that can trip you up.
Exactly. Okay, one last round of rapid fire FAQs. You ready?
Hit me.
Okay. Can an employer take their share of the EPF contribution from an employee's wages?
Absolutely not. No way, no how. It's illegal. It's wrong.
Big no.
Employees have rights, and EPFOs are there to protect them.
All right, next one. What if the employer is late with those contributions? Does the employee lose out on interest?
No, you still get your full interest even if your employer messes up. Every month, calculated right on time.
So the employee is covered no matter what.
Exactly. The employer, though, they face those penalties.
Right, they have to pay up.
There are consequences for not following the rules.
Okay, last one. Can an employee just say, nope, I don't want to contribute to the pension fund?
Well, the answer is technically no, but it's a little more complicated than that. Remember, the pension contribution comes from the employer's side, not the employees.
Okay, so it's not like I'm opting out of my own money.
Right. Your 12% goes to your EPF account. The pension part is separate.
It's all about understanding how the money flows.
Exactly. These FAQs really show how important it is to be clear, to be transparent.
I agree. So to wrap things up, I think the big takeaway here is knowledge is power, especially when it comes to EPFO.
Couldn't have said it better myself. These booklets are amazing resources.
Packed with information.
All the info you need to make smart decisions about your EPF.
And even if you don't remember every single thing, just knowing where to find the information is huge.
EPFO's done a great job making themselves accessible. Website, helpline, social media, they're there to help.
So dive in, explore those resources, take control of your EPF journey, and don't be shy about asking questions.
EPFO is there to support you.
They want you to get the most out of this system. It's a valuable thing we have. So that's it for our deep dive into EPFO. Hope you learned a lot.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right, let's jump right in today. We're getting into some really important stuff, especially for folks in India.
Yeah, definitely crucial.
The Employees Provident Fund Scheme, EPF. We're going to become like EPF pros by the time we're done.
That's the goal.
Think of it this way. You've given me a whole stack of stuff to go through.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from expert discussions to like FAQs, those question and answer things. And we've even got the actual 1952 Act that started it all.
Wow, going way back.
Right. And then on top of that, we've got all the details about how EPF actually works, like the nuts and bolts, and even a guide for the folks who make sure everyone's following the rules.
So we're talking the law, the practical advice, and like real life stories all mixed together.
Exactly. So by the end of this, you won't just know what EPF is, but you'll understand like why it matters and how it all fits together. Where do you even begin with something like this?
Well, I think understanding the history is a good place to start. The EPF scheme has been around for a while, and it's changed and adapted over time.
Yeah, it must have.
It all goes back to the Employees Provident Funds Act of 1952.
Yeah.
Specifically Section 5, which is like the foundation of the whole system.
Wow, so something designed that long ago is still important today. That's wild.
It really is. It shows how forward-thinking those policymakers were. They knew that employees and their families needed a safety net, especially if something were to happen.
Right, like if someone passes away, their family's protected.
Exactly. And they created a structure that could change with the times, too.
So it's not just some vague idea, it's got real legal backing.
Oh, absolutely. It's the law.
Okay, so how is the EPF even managed? Like, who's in charge of all of this?
All right, so imagine a pyramid. At the very top, you've got the Central Board of Trustees.
Okay.
They're kind of like the big bosses overseeing everything. Then there are regional committees, which provide input at a more local level.
So they're making sure things make sense in different parts of the country.
Exactly. And then, doing the everyday work, you have the EPFO.
The Employees Provident Fund Organization.
Yeah, the folks on the ground making sure everything runs smoothly.
Gotcha. So it's like a whole system with checks and balances at every level.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, but let's get into the nitty-gritty. Say someone's starting their first job.
Yeah.
How does this EPF thing actually work for them?
So it's all based on contributions. Both the employer and the employee put in a percentage of the employee's wages into the EPF.
It's not like optional, right? I was looking through one of the booklets we have, and it seems like they're really serious about what happens if you don't follow the rules.
You're absolutely right. There can be penalties, even criminal charges in some cases. Compliance is key.
Wow, okay, so definitely not messing around. And a big part of compliance is making sure all the records are accurate, right?
Exactly. Everything needs to be up to date. That's where Form 5A comes into play.
Form 5A. Sounds kind of scary.
It's not that bad, really. Think of it as the EPFO's ID card for the company. It's got all the details about the company, ownership, branches, contact information, that sort of thing.
So it helps the EPFO keep track of everything.
Yeah, make sure contributions are going to the right place. It's like a safety check.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So contributions are happening. We've got our forms in order. But what about something that's often overlooked, like nominations?
Nominations, yes. Super important. When you're just starting your career, retirement might feel ages away.
Yeah, you're not exactly thinking about that.
But this one little step can have a huge impact later on.
It's like setting up beneficiaries for an insurance policy or something.
You got it. Basically, you decide who gets your EPF savings if something happens to you.
So your family is taken care of.
Exactly. It gives you peace of mind. And the best part is making nominations is really easy.
Okay, nominations, check. Now, what happens when life throws you a curveball? Like you switch jobs.
That's where those FAQs are super useful. They answer those common questions.
Like what happens to your EPF when you change companies?
You can actually transfer your EPF account using something called Form 13R.
So you don't have to start from scratch every time.
Nope, it keeps everything together. You carry your savings with you.
That's a relief. What if you hit retirement age but want to keep working? Can you still be part of the EPF?
Absolutely. The FAQs are clear on that you can keep being a PF member even after you retire, if you're still working.
That's pretty flexible. So the EPF seems to have thought of almost everything.
I really have. But sometimes things go wrong. Like, what if an employer hasn't been paying their EPF contributions? What can an employee do?
That's a good question. You'd hope that wouldn't happen.
Well, the scheme outlines options for what to do if an employer isn't compliant. And here's a tip: always keep your paperwork organized.
Yeah, that's good advice in general. Makes things easier if there's ever a problem.
Exactly. So far, we've been talking about the employee side of things. But what about the employer's role in all of this? They have responsibilities too, right? For employers, it's more than just paying on time. It's about creating a workplace where everyone understands the EPF rules and what it means for them.
And the booklets we have really spell it out for them. They've got all the instructions, the forms to use. It's all very clear.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability on both sides are essential. Employers need to make sure everyone who's eligible is enrolled and knows their rights.
Makes sense. Now, with all this money involved in these complicated processes, there must be some serious oversight. Like, how do they make sure everything is running properly?
You're right. Oversight is crucial. That's where the EPFO's audit and oversight functions come in. They have a whole manual dedicated to this. It outlines the different types of audits they do internally to make sure everything is running smoothly.
So it's not just a quick glance at the books.
Oh no, it's a deep dive into the numbers. It's all about maintaining the system's integrity and making sure everyone's accountable.
Okay, so who actually does these audits?
They have these internal audit parties, they're called IAPs. Yeah, and they're responsible for making sure everything is above board. And they have jurisdiction over specific areas. So, for example, they'll make sure that organizations that are exempt from the usual rules are still following the conditions of their exemption.
Wait, hold on. Exempted organizations. What does that even mean?
That's a great question. Basically, some organizations, for various reasons, manage their own retirement fund schemes instead of participating directly in the EPF.
Wow.
But they still have to follow certain regulations, and the EPFO audits them to make sure they're doing things right.
So it's like checks and balances to keep everyone honest.
You got it. And it's not just internal audits either. Remember we talked about those external audits from the Accountant General or the Controller and Auditor General of India?
Right.
They provide an independent assessment to make sure everything is truly above board. It's a multi-layered approach to transparency and accountability.
Wow, so they're really serious about this. Sounds like they've got all their bases covered. But let's not forget why people are contributing to EPF in the first place, the benefits. It's not just about putting money away, right?
Absolutely not. It's about having access to that money when you need it most. And the EPF scheme offers different types of withdrawals and advances to fit different situations in life.
So it's not just a big lump sum when you retire.
Nope, definitely not. There are non-refundable advances for things like buying a house or paying for your kids' education. And then there are refundable advances for emergencies, like if you lose your job or have a health crisis. And the FAQs give real-life examples of how all these withdrawals work.
That's amazing. It's like a safety net for all those unexpected things life throws at you.
Exactly. It's about providing financial security and support throughout your working life.
Okay, before we get into the details of all those different withdrawals, which I'm dying to hear about, let's talk about pensions. How do you even qualify for a pension? And what's the deal with this retirement age?
The scheme lays out the criteria for getting a pension, including reaching the retirement age, which is 58. But they also mention that you can get a reduced pension if you take money out early. It's all about balancing what you need now with making sure you're financially secure in the long run.
Right, makes sense. Now, I'm curious, how do people even connect with the EPFO to manage their accounts and get help with all of this? It seems like it could be complicated.
Great question. The EPFO has really embraced technology, which is awesome.
Like they're online and everything.
They have the Umang mobile app, a toll-free helpline, their website, even dedicated portals for specific things like complaints and making payments. They're even on social media.
Wow, they're really keeping up with the time.
They really are. They want to make the scheme easy to use and accessible to everyone, but they also emphasize that you should stick to their official channels to avoid scams and misinformation.
Good advice. Safety first. Okay, I feel like we've already covered so much.
We have, but honestly, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
The EPF scheme is complex. There's a lot to unpack.
It's really impressive how much thought has gone into creating this safety net for so many people.
It truly is. And as we dig deeper, you'll see how it all fits together to create a system that's both strong and adaptable. It's a really amazing system when you think about it. It's all about helping people, right? So let's dive into those different types of withdrawals. We were talking about non-refundable advances for stuff like buying a house and education.
Yeah, those are some pretty big expenses.
They are, for sure. Let's say you've been contributing to your EPF for a few years, maybe 5 years or so, and you're finally ready to buy your first house. But getting that down payment together,
Oh yeah, that's a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
it really is. But that's where the EPF can help. After 5 years of contributing, you might be able to take out a big chunk of your savings to buy a house or a flat.
Wow, like how much are we talking?
The FAQs say it could be up to 24 months of your wages. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that could be the difference between renting forever and actually owning a place.
Exactly. It's like a secret weapon in the fight against those crazy housing prices.
So it's not just for retirement, it's actually helping people along the way.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. After those first 5 years, you might be able to take out more money later on to make additions to your house or to fix things up. And then after 10 years, you can potentially withdraw even more for renovations.
It's like they're with you every step of the way.
Exactly. They really are. Okay, now, what about education? The EPF helps with that too, right?
Yeah, that was another one I was really interested in.
Yeah, so you can actually withdraw funds to help pay for your kids' education after they finish high school.
So college tuition, vocational training, anything like that.
Yep, anything that helps them build a better future for themselves.
That's incredible. This takes so much pressure off of parents.
It really does. It's like investing in the next generation.
Totally. So we've got these big life events covered. But what about those times when something unexpected happens, like you lose your job or get sick? We talked about those refundable advances before.
Yeah, those are for emergencies. Let's say you lose your job. That's tough. The EPF lets you withdraw up to 75% of your total savings.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. It can help you cover your expenses while you look for a new job.
It's like a safety net for when things get rough.
Exactly. And if you have a medical emergency, the scheme also allows you to withdraw money for things like being in the hospital for a long time, a major illness, or a serious surgery. Those medical bills can add up so quickly.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's good to know the EPF is there to help with that too, not just for retirement, but for all these different challenges.
It's really a holistic approach, supporting people and their families no matter what. You know, something that really impressed me as we were going through all of this was how transparent they are about how the EPF money is actually managed.
Oh yeah. Tell me about that.
It's not like some big mystery, you know? They're upfront about how they pay for administrative costs and how they invest our contributions.
Right. I remember from those discussions we heard that there's a separate account for administrative costs, right? So that money's kept up from the money that's being invested for us.
Exactly. They're managing the finances responsibly, making sure those administrative costs are covered separately, and then investing our contributions according to specific rules. It's all very clearly laid out.
Okay, this is going to sound a little nerdy, but I was looking through the audit manual, and
Let's hear it.
they do so many different types of audits. Like, it's not just one checkup, it's multiple.
Really?
Yeah. There's the compliance audit, which makes sure organizations are following all the rules. Then they have a separate audit to check that the money is only being spent on the right things. And then another one just to make sure that every expense has been properly authorized.
Wow. It sounds like they're not messing around.
Nope. They're really making sure that every rupee is accounted for. And remember how we talked about those external audits from the Accountant General or the Controller and Auditor General of India?
Yeah.
They're like a second opinion, you know? An independent check to make sure everything is on the up and up.
It's like a multi-pronged approach to accountability. They're leaving nothing to chance.
And then on top of all of that, they've got those inspectors out in the field making sure everything is working the way it should be.
Yeah, the boots on the ground, actually going out to the different organizations, checking records, talking to people. It's a lot of work.
It really is impressive. It's like this whole intricate system with all these different parts working together.
And it all boils down to ensuring people's financial security. That's what it's all about. You know, we've talked about the nuts and bolts of the EPF, how it works, the benefits, the oversight, all of that. But I think it's important to step back and think about the bigger picture too.
What do you mean?
This scheme isn't just about individual accounts. It has a huge impact on the entire Indian economy.
Oh, right. because there's so much money involved.
Exactly. The EPFO manages a massive amount of money, which means it's a major player in the financial markets. It influences interest rates, investments, even economic growth.
Wow, so it's like this engine running in the background, helping the whole economy move forward.
That's a great way to put it. But here's the thing, the way we work is changing all the time. We've got more gig work, people working remotely, all these new types of jobs. So the big question is, how will the EPF adapt to all of this change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Can a system designed so long ago keep up with all these new ways of working?
It has to, right? I mean, it's so important for so many people. And it makes you think, how do you make sure that everyone is protected, no matter what kind of job they have?
It's a challenge for sure, something policymakers and experts are going to have to figure out.
And something that all of us should be paying attention to, because the EPF affects millions of people. It's part of the fabric of our society.
It really makes you think, how can a system created so long ago still be so relevant today? And how will it need to change to stay that way going forward? We've talked about the history, the laws, how contributions work, the different types of withdrawals, those intense audits. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's been a true deep dive.
Yeah.
From the big picture down to the nitty-gritty. Hopefully our listener is feeling like an EPF expert now.
I hope so too. But there's always more to learn, right? That's what's so cool about these deep dives. They open up even more questions and areas to explore.
Exactly. And speaking of questions, maybe it's time we turn things over to our listener and gave them something to think about too.
I like that. So, listener, here's a challenge for you. We've talked about how amazing this EPF safety net is, but it's facing some new 21st century challenges. So, how can a system that's been so successful for so long adapt to the changing nature of work? What needs to change or be invented to make sure it stays relevant for future generations of workers?
It's a tough question, and it's something that deserves real thought. We've seen how the EPF has changed over time to meet the needs of a changing workforce. But things are changing faster than ever now. How will it keep up with things like the gig economy, more people working remotely, all those blurry lines between traditional jobs and freelance or contract work?
It's a big question, but it's one that affects all of us. The EPF scheme impacts so many lives and is a big part of the Indian economy.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'd encourage our listener to keep digging into this. Look back at the sources we've talked about, read articles, listen to other podcasts, maybe even talk to some experts. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to participate in the conversations shaping the future of this important system.
Well said. Remember, listener, knowledge is power, especially when we're talking about something as important as your financial well-being. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
And on that note, it's time for us to sign off.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that's crucial for anyone interested in the financial landscape of India.
The Employees Provident Fund.
Yes, the EPF.
It's more than just a savings plan.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a cornerstone of India's social security system.
Right, we're talking about a retirement savings scheme that impacts millions of lives. It's mandatory for a lot of employees, with contributions from both the employee and the employer. But as our sources point out, there are exceptions. Some establishments are actually exempt.
Yeah, the devil is in the details, as they say. And thankfully, we've got some hefty source material to guide us.
Oh, yeah.
The Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1952.
Okay.
The EPF scheme itself, and even the Employees Pension Scheme of 1995.
Wow, we're going deep. We'll untangle the legal framework, we'll see how the scheme works in practice, and uncover some intriguing details. Did you know there are specific rules about what happens to the money if an EPF member passes away?
Right.
And what if an employer doesn't pay their share? We're going to find out.
Before we get lost in the weeds, let's start with the bedrock. The Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1952.
Right.
This act essentially sets the stage for the entire EPF ecosystem.
It's like the rule book, the foundation on which everything else is built.
Exactly. And like any good rule book, it starts with definitions.
Yeah.
Terms like employee establishment and exempted establishment.
Right.
These are crucial for understanding how the scheme applies.
Okay, let's unpack those. First up, who exactly qualifies as an employee under this act?
Well, the act is pretty broad here. It defines an employee as any person employed for wages in any kind of work manual or otherwise, as long as it's connected to the work of an establishment. The key is that the wages must be paid directly or indirectly by the employer.
So it's not just about the type of work you do, but also the nature of your employment relationship.
Exactly.
What about these establishments then? What kind of organizations are we talking about?
Establishment covers a wide range of workplaces, factories, offices, branches,
Right.
any organized setup where people are employed. The Act makes it clear that even different departments or branches of the same organization are considered part of the same establishment.
All right, so that covers the players. But what about the exceptions, the exempted establishments? Why do some organizations get a pass on this whole EPF thing?
Well, the Act does allow for exemptions, but it's not a free-for-all.
Right.
It's all about ensuring that employees are adequately protected,
Okay.
even if it's not through the EPF itself.
Got it.
For example, if an employer already offers similar or even better benefits through a different scheme, they might be eligible for an exemption.
So it's about maintaining a certain standard of employee benefits, whether through the EPF or an alternative. But I'm guessing even exempted establishments still have some hoops to jump through, right?
Absolutely. The Act still requires them to maintain proper records, submit returns, and prove that their employees are receiving comparable benefits. It's not about escaping responsibility altogether.
I'm sensing a theme here. Accountability and enforcement seem to be central to this whole EPF system.
You're spot on. The Act lays out a clear framework for determining money owed by employers, resolving disputes, and recovering unpaid dues. There are even tribunals specifically designed to handle EPF-related conflicts.
Wow, they're not messing around. It sounds like the Act has some serious teeth to ensure compliance.
It does. The Act outlines penalties for noncompliance, including imprisonment in some cases. It underscores how seriously the government views the protection of employee retirement savings.
Okay, we've got the Act as our foundation, the rules of the game. Now let's dive into the Employees Provident Funds scheme itself. This is where we see how the game is actually played right.
Precisely. The EPF scheme gets into the nitty-gritty of contributions, withdrawals, and how the whole system functions.
Let's start with who's eligible to join this fund. Is it open to every single employee in India?
While it covers a wide range, it's not quite universal. The scheme lays out specific eligibility criteria. Generally, employees earning up to a certain wage limit are eligible, but there are some exceptions like apprentices or specific categories of workers who are excluded.
Makes sense. So let's say I meet the eligibility criteria. How do I actually become a member of the fund? Is there a sign-up process?
The scheme typically involves a waiting period before an eligible employee officially becomes a member.
Okay.
This period can vary depending on the industry as specific employment conditions.
So there's a bit of a waiting game involved.
Okay.
All right, let's say I've served my time and I'm officially a member. Now, how much do I have to contribute to this fund?
Here's the interesting part. Both you as the employee and your employer contribute a certain percentage of your wages to the fund. Currently, the contribution rate for both is 12%.
Wait, so both sides contribute equally? It's a pretty unique model.
It is. It reflects the shared responsibility of securing your retirement. But here's a key detail the scheme highlights.
Okay.
Employees can actually choose to contribute more than the mandatory 12% if they want to boost their savings.
Okay, so there is some flexibility built into the system. I like that. Now let's talk logistics. In this digital age, how are these contributions actually deposited? Do I still have to physically go to a bank with a stack of forms?
Thankfully, no. The scheme emphasizes the use of electronic deposits, particularly through internet banking. It's a modern twist that streamlines the process for both employees and employers.
I love how technology is being used to make these financial processes more efficient. It's a win-win for everyone.
Agreed. So we've covered who contributes and how the money gets into the fund, but the big question is what happens to it once it's there? Where does it all go?
That's what I'm dying to know. We're talking about a massive pool of money. Who's in charge of managing it all?
The EPF scheme lays out a comprehensive administrative structure.
Okay.
A central board of trustees plays a key role overseeing investments, benefit disbursements, and the overall functioning of the scheme.
That sounds like a huge responsibility.
It is, but they're not alone. The central board is assisted by various committees and officials at regional and local levels, creating a multi-tiered system to ensure smooth operation.
No. Okay, so it's a well-organized system. But let's talk about the money itself. Are there different types of accounts involved?
The scheme mentions several bank accounts used to manage the EPF funds. For instance, there's a central administration account, specifically for covering the administrative costs of the scheme.
That makes sense. So there's a clear separation between the money used for running the show and the actual retirement savings.
Exactly. Transparency and accountability are key here. The scheme goes into detail about how these funds are managed and invested.
Speaking of investment, where does all this money actually go? What are the guidelines?
The scheme emphasizes investments in securities payable in India with a strong focus on safety and security. The aim is to protect the long-term value of the savings.
That's reassuring. After all, this is money people are counting on for their retirement. You wouldn't want to gamble with it.
Absolutely. Now, remember those intriguing details I mentioned earlier. One that stands out is the wide range of circumstances under which members can actually withdraw money from their EPF accounts. It's not just about waiting until retirement.
All right, that's where things get interesting. I'm ready to hear about these withdrawal options. What kind of situations are we talking about?
Members can withdraw funds for a variety of reasons. Purchasing or constructing a home, covering medical expenses, funding their children's education, and even for marriage expenses.
Wow, that's way more flexible than I imagined. It's like the EPF isn't just a retirement fund, it's a financial safety net for life's major events.
You got it. But keep in mind, each withdrawal reason comes with its own set of rules and eligibility criteria. It can get a bit complicated.
I could see how things could get overwhelming quickly.
Yeah.
So we've got the Act as our foundation, the scheme laying out the rules of the game, and now we're starting to see how flexible this system can be. I'm already feeling like I've learned a ton.
We've only just scratched the surface, but this is a good place to pause and regroup.
Agreed. We've laid a solid foundation, but there's still so much more to explore. Join us as we continue our deep dive into the Indian Employees Provident Fund.
In part one, we established the foundation.
Right, the Act, the scheme, who's involved, how contributions work.
Now let's get into some of the finer points.
Perfect, because I'm still curious about those exempted establishments. If the EPF is so important, why are some organizations allowed to sidestep it?
Well, it's not about sidestepping responsibility. The Act allows the appropriate government to grant exemptions,
Okay.
but only under specific conditions. And remember, appropriate government can be either the central government or a state government,
Right.
depending on the industry and location of the establishment.
Okay, so there's some nuance there. But what are those specific conditions? When does an exemption actually make sense?
One common scenario is when an establishment already has a provident fund or superannuation fund in place
Okay.
that offers benefits equal to or even better than the EPF scheme.
So it's about ensuring employees aren't disadvantaged. If an organization already provides a robust retirement plan, why force them into the EPF?
Exactly. It's about flexibility and recognizing that different systems can achieve the same goal
Right.
of employee welfare. But even with an exemption, there are still rules.
I figured there's no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Yeah.
What kind of obligations do exempted establishments still have?
They need to maintain detailed records, submit returns, and most importantly, prove that their alternative scheme genuinely meets the standards of the EPF.
Okay.
The government doesn't just take their word for it.
That makes sense. Accountability is still key even with an exemption.
Absolutely. The system is designed with checks and balances to protect employee interests, regardless of the specific path.
All right, so let's say an employer tries to bend the rules, maybe even tries to get an exemption they don't qualify for. What are the consequences?
The Act is very clear about this. Non-compliance is not taken lightly.
Oh, I remember this. Part-time for the hammer to come down.
Right. The EPF authorities have the power to recover unpaid dues, levy hefty penalties, and in some cases even initiate legal proceedings that could lead to imprisonment for the employer.
Okay, that's serious. It definitely sends the message that playing fast and loose with the EPF is a bad idea.
No one wants to mess with employee retirement savings. The government has made that very clear.
Speaking of which, there's one scenario I'm particularly curious about. What happens to an EPF member's funds if they pass away? Right.
It's not something we like to think about, but it's important.
You're right, and the EPF scheme addresses this directly. It outlines a clear process for dispersing funds belonging to a deceased member,
Okay.
ensuring the financial well-being of their family.
Let's say a member has a spouse and children. Who gets the money in that situation?
The scheme prioritizes immediate family. Typically, the spouse and children are the primary beneficiaries.
That makes sense. It's like a built-in safety net for the family. But what if the member didn't specify any nominees or beneficiaries? What happens then?
Even in those cases, the scheme outlines a process for determining legal heirs and ensuring the funds go to the rightful recipients.
Okay, so there's a system in place no matter what. That's reassuring.
The scheme aims to provide clarity and minimize complications, even during difficult times.
This whole discussion highlights the depth and thoughtfulness behind the EPF. It's not just about saving for retirement. It's about supporting individuals and their families throughout life's journey.
I agree. The EPF is a complex but ultimately compassionate system. All right, we've explored the core elements of the EPF scheme and even tackled some of the thornier issues like exemptions and, well, the unfortunate event of a member's passing. But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't touched upon yet.
Right.
The Employees' Pension Scheme of 1995.
Right. While it's a separate scheme, the EPS is deeply intertwined with the EPF. Think of it as the dynamic duo of retirement security in India.
Let's break it down for our listeners. Remind me, how is the EPS funded?
Here's where it gets clever. The EPS is partially funded through a portion of the employer's contribution to the EPF. It's like a dedicated stream within the broader river of contributions.
So employers are essentially contributing to both the EPF and the EPS with a single payment. That's efficient.
It is, and it highlights the symbiotic relationship between these two schemes.
Now, who's eligible for the EPS? Is it automatic for anyone who's part of the EPF?
Not quite. The EPS has its own set of eligibility criteria, including a minimum service requirement. You need to have contributed to the EPS for a certain number of years to qualify for a pension.
Okay, so it's not a given. You have to earn your way into the pension club.
Fair enough. And the amount of pension you receive isn't arbitrary either. It's calculated based on several factors.
I'm guessing salary and length of service play a big role.
Absolutely. Those are the two primary variables. The more you earn and the longer you contribute, the higher your pension will be.
Makes sense. Are there any other factors that might influence the pension amount?
There are a few nuances. For example, the scheme allows for early retirement.
Okay.
But choosing to retire before the standard age might result in a reduced pension. It's a trade-off.
So there are consequences for wanting to enjoy that retirement life a bit sooner.
There are always trade-offs. But it's important to remember that the EPS also provides for disability pensions,
Right.
which are payable to members who become permanently disabled, regardless of whether the disability occurred during their employment or not.
That's an important safety net for those facing unforeseen challenges. It really highlights the social safety net aspect of this whole system.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, financial sustainability.
Okay.
We're talking about providing pensions to potentially millions of people. How does the EPS stay afloat?
It's a valid concern. I'm all ears.
The EPS relies on a combination of factors for its long-term sustainability. First, it benefits from a continuous inflow of contributions from both employers and employees.
That steady stream of funds we talked about earlier is crucial.
Right. Second, the scheme invests its funds strategically following guidelines aimed at preserving and growing the value of those funds over time.
So it's like a well-managed investment portfolio designed to support the long-term payment of pensions.
Exactly. And finally, the government plays a role in monitoring the scheme's financial health and making adjustments as needed. They might tweak contribution rates or modify benefit calculations to ensure long-term viability.
So it's a dynamic system constantly adapting to ensure it can meet its obligations.
Right. There's a balance between providing meaningful benefits to employees and ensuring the scheme's long-term health.
Now, before we wrap up this part, there's one more intriguing detail about the EPS I want to touch upon. You mentioned something called a scheme certificate.
Yes.
What's that all about?
The scheme certificate is a unique feature. It's essentially a record of your contributions to the EPS.
So it's like a pension statement.
You could say that.
Yeah.
But the real magic is that it allows you to maintain your membership in the EPS.
Okay.
Even if you switch jobs or become self-employed.
Hold on. So even if I'm not actively contributing, I can still hold on to my membership and my accrued benefits.
Exactly. This is incredibly valuable for individuals with gaps in their formal employment or those transitioning to self-employment.
Okay.
They can retain their scheme certificate and all their accrued benefits until retirement.
Wow, that's a game changer. It adds so much flexibility to the pension scheme, recognizing that careers aren't always linear.
Right. It acknowledges the realities of the modern workforce.
Well, I think we've done a deep dive into the EPS, from eligibility and calculations to the power of the scheme certificate. It's a complex system, but ultimately it's designed to provide a safety net for employees as they transition into retirement.
We've definitely given our listener a lot to think about, but we're not done yet. There are still some hidden gems in our source material waiting to be unearthed.
All right, you've piqued my curiosity. Let's take a short break and come back for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll uncover those fascinating tidbits that make the EPF such a unique and impactful scheme.
See you soon.
Welcome back, fellow deep divers. We've journeyed through the intricate world of the EPF, exploring its legal foundations, its various schemes, and the mechanisms that make it tick.
We've uncovered how it functions as a retirement savings plan,
Right.
a pension scheme, and even a source of financial support during various life events.
Right. But as you've hinted, there's still more to discover.
Yes.
What hidden gems are tucked away in these documents?
Well, one source, the EDLI scheme document, introduces a layer we haven't even touched upon yet.
Okay.
The Employees Deposit-Linked Insurance Scheme of 1976.
Okay, now that's a surprise. We've covered retirement savings and pensions, but now we're adding insurance to the mix.
Exactly. The EDLI scheme, as it's called, provides life insurance coverage to EPF members.
Wow.
It's like an extra layer of protection
Okay.
built right into the system.
So on top of everything else, I also get life insurance just by being an EPF member.
That's the beauty of it. And there are no separate premiums to pay. The cost is covered by your employer's contributions to the EPF.
Wow, talk about a comprehensive benefits package. So how does it work? If hypothetically something were to happen to me, what kind of payout would my family receive?
The EDLI scheme provides a life sum payment to your nominees or legal heirs. The amount is calculated based on your average EPF balance and your salary at the time of death. There's a cap on the maximum benefit, but it's designed to provide significant financial support to your family.
It's reassuring to know that the system is looking out for my family's well-being, even in the face of the unexpected.
Exactly. It goes beyond just securing your own retirement.
Right.
It's about providing a safety net for your loved ones.
We've talked a lot about the benefits, but I'm also fascinated by the inner workings of the scheme. How is it all managed so efficiently?
That's where the details in the EPF scheme document really shine. They outline a robust framework for administration and financial management.
I remember you mentioned the central administration account earlier. It impressed me how the system transparently separates administrative expenses from our actual savings.
Transparency is crucial, especially when dealing with such a large and vital fund. The central administration account ensures that administrative costs are tracked and covered without impacting members' retirement savings.
Okay, that makes sense. But administrative costs are just one piece of the puzzle. What about the overall budgeting process? How does the scheme ensure financial prudence and accountability?
The scheme outlines a detailed budgeting process with annual budgets prepared, reviewed, and sanctioned by both the Central Board of Trustees and the government.
Okay.
It's a multi-layered system designed to prevent financial mismanagement. So there's a lot of oversight involved. That makes me feel more confident about the security of my contributions.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. The scheme even has provisions for handling unexpected expenses through supplementary budgets. They've clearly thought through various scenarios to ensure the fund's stability.
It's impressive how much detail and planning have gone into this system.
It reflects a deep understanding of the importance of this scheme and its impact on the lives of millions.
Now let's talk about the growth potential of our contributions. You mentioned interest being earned on EPF balances. How does that work?
That's where the magic of compounding comes in. The interest earned on your EPF balance is compounded annually, which helps your savings grow significantly over time.
But how is the interest rate determined? Is it fixed or does it fluctuate?
The interest rate is determined by the central government in consultation with the Central Board of Trustees. They consider various factors like the overall financial health of the scheme and prevailing market conditions.
So it's a dynamic system designed to provide a reasonable return while ensuring the long-term stability of the scheme.
Right. And here's another interesting detail. The scheme allows members to opt out of receiving interest if they wish.
Wait, why would anyone choose not to earn interest on their savings?
Some people might have ethical or religious objections to receiving interest. The scheme respects those beliefs and gives members the freedom to make that choice.
That's incredible. It speaks volumes about the scheme's inclusivity and sensitivity to individual beliefs.
It really does. It recognizes that financial decisions are often intertwined with personal values.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by the sheer breadth and depth of the EPF scheme. It's like a financial ecosystem designed to support individuals throughout their working lives and beyond.
It's a testament to the power of foresight and planning. The creators of this scheme clearly understood the importance of financial security for the Indian workforce.
We've explored the history, the various schemes, the nitty-gritty of benefits and regulations, and even unearthed some hidden gems along the way. Our listeners should now have a comprehensive understanding of how the EPF operates.
We've certainly given them a lot to consider.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of the EPF in India.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery.
We hope you found it as enlightening as we have. Until next time, happy exploring. This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. ever wondered how a pension scheme actually works? It's more than just numbers, right?
Exactly. There's a whole system behind it, a lot of moving parts, yeah.
And today we're diving into the Employees Pension Scheme of 1995.
A pretty comprehensive document, I'd say.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, what's the first thing that jumps out at you?
The definitions section. It's crucial for understanding the whole scheme. Terms like actual service, contributory service, and pensionable service are key.
So actual service is just the total time worked, right? But contributory service is different?
Yeah, it's the time worked where contributions were actually received. There might be gaps in actual service where contributions weren't made.
Right. And pensionable service is what actually counts towards the pension.
Precisely. It's the service for which contributions were received or are receivable.
So where does the money for the pension come from?
Primarily from employer contributions. The employer contributes 8.33% of the employee's pay, and the government adds another 1.16%.
And there's a cap on that contribution, right?
Yes, if the employee's pay exceeds a certain amount, the contributions are capped. The exact amount changes over time.
So it's not just current contributions, right? There's something about transferring assets from an older scheme?
Correct. Assets from the 1971 Family Pension Scheme were transferred to the 1995 fund.
Who's eligible to join this scheme?
Basically, anyone who becomes a member of the employee's provident fund after a certain date, or who was already a member of the older pension scheme.
And there's an option to join even if you weren't a member earlier?
Yes, there's an opt-in provision for those who left the 1971 scheme before the 1995 scheme started.
Okay. And what about the employer's responsibilities? It's not just about paying contributions, is it?
No, employers have several duties, including preparing contribution cards, sending returns to the commissioner, and maintaining accounts. They also have to pay penalties for late payments.
How is the actual pension amount calculated?
It's a formula based on pensionable salary and pensionable service. There are different calculations for new and existing members.
I see. And there are minimum pension amounts?
Yes, there are minimum amounts, and these have been adjusted over time. There are also provisions for early retirement and deferring retirement.
So it's not a simple calculation, it depends on when you joined and other factors.
Exactly. The scheme is quite detailed with different rules for different situations.
What about benefits if someone becomes disabled or dies?
There are provisions for pensions in case of permanent total disablement. If a member dies, their family is entitled to a pension or other benefits.
Right, and the amount depends on the member's pension at the time of death?
Yes, and there are minimum amounts for widow/widower and children's pensions. There are also provisions for orphans.
So it's a pretty comprehensive safety net for employees and their families?
Absolutely. It aims to provide financial security in various circumstances.
How is the scheme administered and enforced?
The Central Board oversees the administration, and there are regional committees to help with implementation. Inspectors ensure compliance.
And there are penalties for non-compliance?
Yes, significant penalties for employers who default on contributions or other requirements. There are also provisions for recovering damages.
So it's not just a suggestion, it's a legally binding scheme with consequences for non-compliance?
Precisely. It's a legally binding scheme with mechanisms for enforcement.
Can employers be exempt from the scheme?
Yes, the appropriate government can grant exemptions to establishments or classes of establishments, but only if they provide comparable or better benefits to their employees.
Okay. And there's a process for applying for and reviewing exemptions?
Yes, there's a formal application process, and the decision is subject to review. There are also time limits for processing applications.
So it's not an easy way out? There are conditions and processes to follow?
Correct. The exemption is not automatic and is subject to strict conditions.
Anything else we should highlight from this document?
The scheme includes provisions for maintaining accounts, auditing the fund, and issuing annual reports. It also specifies how the fund's money is invested.
So transparency and accountability are built into the system?
Absolutely. The scheme is designed to ensure transparency and proper management of the fund.
So it's clear that the 1995 Employees Pension Scheme is a complex but crucial piece of legislation. It's a detailed framework designed to provide a safety net for employees and their families. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to the discussion. Today we're diving into the Employees Deposit Link Insurance Scheme of 1976, a cornerstone of India's Social Security framework. It's a complex piece of legislation, but our guest is here to help us unpack it.
Indeed. The 1976 scheme, while seemingly straightforward in its aim to provide insurance benefits linked to employee provident funds, has evolved significantly over the years, reflecting changes in economic realities and social needs.
Exactly. It's not just about the initial provisions. The amendments and subsequent schemes built upon it are crucial to understanding its current impact, right?
Absolutely. The scheme's longevity highlights its importance, but also the ongoing need for adaptation and refinement.
Let's start with the basics. What was the core purpose of the scheme when it was first introduced?
The primary goal was to provide a safety net for employees and their families in the event of the employee's death. The assurance benefit was directly tied to the average balance in their Provident Fund account, offering a crucial financial cushion during a difficult time. The initial scheme laid out the administrative structure, contribution mechanisms, and benefit calculation methods.
So the administration was centralized under the Central Board, as established under Section 5A of the Employees' Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1952. This board played a key role in overseeing the fund's operations, I see.
Precisely. The Central Board, with its regional committees, ensured a balance between centralized control and regional responsiveness. This structure was designed to manage contributions, investigate defaults, and ensure efficient disbursement of benefits.
And the contributions themselves, how were they structured?
The scheme mandated contributions from both the employer and the central government, calculated based on the employee's wages, including dearness allowance and other allowances. There were provisions for cap contributions at a certain wage level to ensure fairness and manageability.
So the employer's responsibility extended to remitting contributions within a specified time frame, along with administrative charges. Failure to do so resulted in penalties, right?
Correct. The scheme included provisions for recovering damages for default in payment, with penalties escalating based on the duration of the delay. This ensured compliance and the financial health of the fund. The mode of payment was also clearly defined, typically through bank drafts or checks.
And what about the crucial aspect of investment?
The management of the insurance fund was meticulously outlined. Initially, funds were kept in deposits with the central government, earning interest. Later amendments introduced a more diversified investment strategy, mirroring the investment pattern of the Employees' Provident Fund scheme of 1952.
This diversification seemed to maximize returns while maintaining the fund's stability and security. The scheme also addressed the handling of interest earned on investments and other income.
Exactly. All interest, rent, and profits from investments were credited back to the insurance fund, ensuring its growth and sustainability. The scheme also established separate accounts for the administration and the insurance fund itself, maintaining transparency and accountability.
The scheme also included provisions for audits and budgetary processes.
Yes, the scheme mandated annual audits of the insurance fund, following guidelines set by the central government in consultation with the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. This ensured transparency and accountability in fund management. A detailed budgetary process was also established, requiring the Commissioner to present a yearly budget to the Central Board for approval.
This ensured that the fund's resources were allocated efficiently and effectively. The scheme also required the Central Board to submit an annual report on its operations to the central government.
This reporting mechanism was crucial for monitoring the scheme's performance and identifying areas for improvement. It provided a mechanism for public accountability and transparency.
Let's move on to the calculation of the assurance benefit itself.
The assurance benefit calculation was a key element of the scheme. Initially, it was simply the average balance in the Provident Fund account over the preceding 12 months or membership period, whichever was shorter. However, subsequent amendments introduced more complex calculations, including minimum and maximum limits, to ensure fairness and affordability.
These amendments reflected the changing economic landscape and the need to provide more substantial benefits to employees. The calculations also considered part-time employees and those with continuous service in the same establishment.
Precisely. The scheme aimed to be inclusive and equitable, adapting its benefit calculations to accommodate various employment scenarios. The amendments also introduced a percentage increase in the assurance benefit, further enhancing its value.
And who received assurance benefit?
The scheme prioritized the nominee designated by the employee under the Employees' Provident Fund scheme, 1952. If no nomination existed, or if the nomination was partial, the benefit was distributed among family members according to a defined hierarchy. There were specific exclusions to prevent abuse.
This hierarchy ensured that the benefit reached the intended beneficiaries. The scheme also included provisions for handling cases where a person claiming the benefit was suspected of foul play.
Absolutely. The scheme included a mechanism to suspend claims if a beneficiary was suspected of murdering the employee, ensuring fairness and preventing potential abuse of the system. The claim would be resolved only after the conclusion of the criminal proceedings.
The scheme also detailed the methods for paying out the assurance benefit.
The scheme provided several options for payment, including postal money orders, bank deposits, and annuity term deposits. The employer played a crucial role in facilitating the claim process, acting as an intermediary between the employee and the commissioner.
The employer's responsibilities extended beyond contributions. They were also responsible for submitting various returns and maintaining records.
Indeed. Employers were required to submit consolidated returns of employees, monthly returns of new and departing employees, and monthly abstracts of wages and contributions. They were also responsible for maintaining accounts and assisting the central board in making payments. The scheme also included provisions for inspection of records by the commissioner or inspector.
The scheme also addressed the issue of exemptions.
The scheme allowed for exemptions for employees or classes of employees who already received comparable or more favorable benefits from their employers. This was to avoid duplication and ensure that the scheme's resources were used efficiently. The conditions for exemption were clearly defined, and the process for applying for and obtaining exemption was outlined.
These exemptions were subject to specific terms and conditions, ensuring that employees still received adequate protection. The scheme also included special provisions for certain campaigns and situations.
Yes, the scheme included special provisions to address specific situations, such as the Employees Enrollment Campaign of 2017, adjusting penalty rates for contributions made during that period. This demonstrated the scheme's adaptability to changing circumstances.
Finally, the scheme included penalties for non-compliance.
The scheme established penalties for various forms of non-compliance, including deducting employer contributions from employee wages, submitting false returns, obstructing inspectors, and other violations. These penalties served as a deterrent and ensured compliance with the scheme's provisions.
These penalties were designed to maintain the integrity of the scheme and protect the interests of employees. The scheme also included provisions for resolving disputes and ensuring timely payment of benefits.
The scheme aimed for efficiency and fairness in its operations. Time limits were set for settling claims, and penalties were imposed for delays. This ensured that beneficiaries received their benefits promptly.
The detailed forms included in the scheme provided a framework for record keeping and reporting.
The inclusion of detailed forms for various purposes, such as receipt and payment accounts, administrative accounts, balance sheets, and member declarations, ensured standardized record keeping and facilitated efficient administration and auditing. These forms were crucial for maintaining transparency and accountability.
These forms, along with the prescribed registers and records, provided a comprehensive system for tracking contributions, benefits, and other relevant information. The scheme also included provisions for supplying these forms to employers free of charge.
The provision of forms free of charge ensured accessibility and minimized administrative burdens on employers. The standardized forms also facilitated data collection and analysis, enabling the central board to monitor the scheme's effectiveness.
The scheme's structure and provisions reflect a commitment to providing a robust and sustainable Social Security system.
The Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme of 1976, with its subsequent amendments, represents a significant effort to provide a social safety net for Indian employees. Its evolution reflects the ongoing need to adapt to changing economic and social conditions, ensuring its continued relevance and effectiveness.
The scheme's success lies in its ability to balance centralized control with regional flexibility, ensuring efficient administration and equitable distribution of benefits. The detailed provisions for contributions, investment, audits, and penalties have contributed to its longevity and impact. Yes.
The scheme's emphasis on transparency, accountability, and timely benefit disbursement has been crucial to its success. The inclusion of mechanisms for resolving disputes and addressing non-compliance has further strengthened its effectiveness.
The scheme's adaptability, as evidenced by its numerous amendments and the incorporation of subsequent schemes, demonstrates its capacity to evolve and meet the changing needs of the workforce.
The scheme's enduring relevance underscores its importance as a vital component of India's social security infrastructure. Its ongoing evolution ensures its continued ability to provide crucial financial protection to employees and their families.
That was a great discussion. Thank you for your insights. This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to today's discussion. We'll be exploring the intricacies of the Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO, in India, specifically focusing on their pension and insurance schemes. These schemes are vital for millions of Indian workers, but their complexities can be daunting. Let's start with the Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme, 1976. What's the fundamental purpose of this scheme?
The 1976 scheme aims to provide a crucial safety net for employees and their families in the event of the employee's death. It's a deposit-linked insurance, meaning the payout is tied to the average balance in the employee's Provident Fund account. This offers a degree of financial security beyond the standard Provident Fund savings.
So the payout isn't a fixed amount, it depends on how much the employee had saved?
Precisely. The scheme outlines a formula for calculating the assurance benefit, considering factors like the average balance in the Provident Fund account over the preceding 12 months or the membership period, whichever is shorter. There are also specific provisions for part-time employees and those with continuous employment exceeding 12 months.
And who receives this assurance benefit if an employee passes away? Is it always the spouse?
The scheme prioritizes the nominee designated by the employee. If no nomination exists, the benefit is distributed among eligible family members according to a defined hierarchy. There are specific exclusions, such as adult sons and married daughters with living husbands. If no eligible family members exist, the benefit goes to the legally entitled person.
That's quite detailed. What about the administrative side? How is the scheme managed and funded?
The scheme is administered by the Central Board constituted under the Employees' Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, 1952. Funding comes from contributions by the employer and the central government, calculated based on the employee's wages, with a cap on high earners. The scheme also details the procedures for contribution payment, recovery of damages for late payments, and the investment of the insurance fund.
It sounds like there's a significant emphasis on timely contributions. What happens if an employer is late?
The scheme outlines penalties for late payments, with damages increasing based on the duration of the delay. However, the Central Board has the authority to reduce or waive these damages under specific circumstances, such as changes in management or recommendations from the Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction.
That's a crucial aspect for employers to understand. Now, let's shift our focus to the Employees' Pension Scheme, 1995. How does this scheme differ from the insurance scheme we just discussed?
The 1995 scheme focuses on providing a regular pension to employees after retirement or in case of permanent total disablement. Unlike the insurance scheme's lump sum payment, this offers a continuous income stream. It also provides for family pensions, children's pensions, and orphan pensions in the event of the member's death.
So it's a long-term commitment, providing a steady income source during retirement.
Exactly. The scheme details the calculation of pension amounts, considering factors like pensionable service, pensionable salary, and whether the member is a new entrant or an existing member from the previous family pension scheme. It also outlines options for early retirement or deferring pension payments.
What are the key differences in how pensions are calculated for new and existing members?
The calculation differs based on the member's entry date and their service history. Existing members have their past service under the previous scheme factored into their pension calculation, while new entrants' pensions are based solely on their contributory service under the 1995 scheme. There are also minimum pension guarantees and provisions for part-time employees.
And what about the funding mechanism for the pension scheme?
The Employees' Pension Fund is funded by employer contributions, 8.33% of the employee's pay, central government contributions, 1.16% of the employee's pay, and the transfer of assets from the previous family pension scheme. Similar to the insurance scheme, there are contribution limits for high earners.
The documents mention eligible service and pensionable service. Are these terms interchangeable?
No, they're distinct. Eligible service encompasses the total period of service considered for pension eligibility, including past service for existing members. Pensionable service, however, refers specifically to the period for which contributions were received or are receivable to the pension fund.
The scheme also addresses situations where employees leave service before becoming eligible for pension. What happens then?
In such cases, members receive a withdrawal benefit calculated based on their contributions and service. Existing members also receive an additional return for their past service under the previous scheme. Alternatively, they can opt for a scheme certificate, which can be used to calculate their pension if they are reemployed in a covered establishment.
Finally, let's briefly touch upon the Employees' Provident Fund Scheme, 1952. How does this foundational scheme relate to the pension and insurance schemes?
The 1952 scheme forms the bedrock of the EPFO system. It establishes the framework for membership, contributions, fund management, and other administrative aspects. The pension and insurance schemes build upon this foundation, adding specific benefits related to retirement and death. The 1952 scheme also details the structure and powers of the EPFO's governing bodies, including the Central Board and regional committees. It also outlines penalties for non-compliance and procedures for exemptions. The 1952 scheme is a comprehensive document that lays the groundwork for the other two schemes.
This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to today's discussion. We're diving deep into the Employees' Provident Fund Scheme, 1952, a document brimming with rules, regulations, and enough conditions to make your head spin. Are you ready for a detailed exploration?
Absolutely. This scheme is a complex beast, but a fascinating one. Let's unravel it.
Let's start with the basics. What's the scheme's primary purpose and who does it cover?
Its core function is to establish provident funds for employees in factories and other specified establishments. Initially, it focused on specific industries, but its scope has expanded significantly over the years.
Right. And what about the legal basis? Where does this scheme derive its authority?
It's authorized under Section 5 of the Employees Provident Funds Act, 1952. This act provides the overarching legal framework, while the scheme lays out the detailed operational rules.
Chapter 1 sets the stage. What are some key definitions and the scheme's application?
It defines crucial terms like act, commissioner, employee, and excluded employee. The application is broad, covering most factories and establishments to which the act applies, with specific exceptions and phased rollouts for different industries. Note the numerous amendments and additions over the years reflecting the evolving industrial landscape.
I see. The phased rollout is interesting. Can you elaborate on how that worked?
Absolutely. The scheme didn't apply to all industries at once. It started with certain key industries in 1952 and gradually expanded through numerous notifications, adding industries to Schedule 1 of the Act. Each addition had a specific effective date. This demonstrates a pragmatic approach to implementation, allowing for a gradual expansion of coverage.
So it wasn't a big bang approach. That makes sense. What about the specific industries initially covered?
The initial list included cement, cigarettes, electrical and mechanical engineering, iron and steel, paper, and textiles. This reflects the major industries of the time. The subsequent additions show the expansion into other sectors like mining, food processing, and even some service industries.
Right. And what about the exceptions? Are there any types of establishments or employees that are excluded?
Yes, there are several. Some are explicitly mentioned in the NEM itself, while others are determined based on factors like the employee's pay exceeding a certain threshold. The definition of excluded employee has also evolved over time. This highlights the need for regular review and updates to the scheme.
Let's move to Chapter 2, focusing on the Board of Trustees, the Executive Committee, and regional committees. What's the structure and purpose of these bodies?
The Central Board is the primary governing body, with representatives from the government, employers, and employees. The Executive Committee assists the Central Board, and regional committees provide localized oversight. The composition and functions of these bodies are detailed in the scheme, ensuring a balance of interests and efficient administration.
Okay. How are members of these committees selected or appointed?
It's a mix of appointment and election. Government representatives are appointed, while employer and employee representatives are either appointed in consultation with recognized organizations or elected by the Central Board. The election process for the Executive Committee is specifically outlined, ensuring a fair and transparent process.
Makes sense. What about the terms of office for these members?
The terms vary depending on the committee. Central Board members serve 5-year terms, while Executive Committee members serve shorter terms. There are provisions for filling casual vacancies and reappointments, ensuring continuity and expertise. The scheme also addresses issues like resignation and removal from office, maintaining accountability.
Good point. And what mechanisms are in place to ensure the committees functioned effectively?
The scheme details meeting procedures, quorum requirements, and voting mechanisms. It also addresses situations where members are absent or leave India, ensuring the committees can continue to operate effectively. The provisions for substitutes during absence are also noteworthy. This meticulous attention to detail ensures the smooth functioning of the governance structure.
Chapter 3 deals with the appointment and powers of the commissioner and other staff. What's the role of the commissioner?
The Central Provident Fund Commissioner is the Chief Executive Officer of the Central Board, responsible for the day-to-day administration of the fund. The scheme outlines the appointment process, including consultation with the Union Public Service Commission for senior positions. This ensures a high level of competence and integrity in the administration.
Right. What are the commissioner's powers and responsibilities?
The commissioner has significant administrative and financial powers, including the authority to sanction expenditure within certain limits. These powers can be delegated to other officers under the commissioner's control, promoting efficiency. The scheme also addresses the powers of the central government before the Central Board is constituted.
Okay. How does the scheme ensure transparency and accountability in the commissioner's actions?
The scheme requires reporting of certain actions and delegations to the Central Board, promoting transparency. The commissioner is also prohibited from undertaking work unrelated to their office without prior sanction, maintaining focus and preventing conflicts of interest. This framework ensures accountability and prevents misuse of power.
Chapter 4 focuses on membership of the fund. Who is eligible to join, and what are the conditions?
Essentially, every employee in a covered establishment is eligible except for excluded employees, as defined earlier. The scheme outlines the conditions for joining, including provisions for employees already in a provident fund when the scheme applies to their establishment. It also addresses the retention of membership and the resolution of doubts regarding eligibility.
I see. What happens if an employee is exempted from the scheme?
The commissioner can exempt an employee if they already receive comparable benefits. However, the employer is still required to maintain certain records and comply with specific reporting requirements. This ensures that even exempted employees are not left without some form of Social Security. The scheme also allows for the exemption of entire classes of employees under similar conditions.
Makes sense. Are there any provisions for transferring accumulations from existing provident funds?
Yes, the scheme details the process for transferring accumulations from existing funds to the fund established under the scheme. This ensures that employees' savings are not lost when the scheme is applied to their establishment. The process includes detailed instructions on how to transfer various types of investments.
Chapter C deals with contributions. What are the rates of contribution for employers and employees?
The employer's contribution is typically 10% of the employee's basic wages, dearness allowance, and retaining allowance. However, this can be increased to 12% for certain establishments specified by the central government. The employee's contribution is equal to the employer's contribution, with the option to contribute more. The scheme clarifies that the employer's share cannot be deducted from the employee's wages.
Right. How are these contributions paid, and what happens if there's a default?
The employer initially pays both the employer's and employees' contributions. For employees hired through contractors, the contractor recovers the employee's share and pays it to the principal employer along with their own contribution. The scheme details the recovery process for the employee's contribution and outlines penalties for defaulting employers, including damages calculated based on the duration of the default. The scheme also provides for reduction or waiver of damages in specific circumstances.
Chapter 6 covers declarations, contribution cards, and returns. What are the employer's reporting obligations?
Employers have several reporting obligations, including submitting initial returns of eligible employees, monthly returns of new and departing employees, and annual contribution statements. They must also maintain specific records and an inspection notebook for inspectors' visits. The scheme specifies the forms to be used and the timelines for submission. The use of electronic formats for returns is also emphasized.
Okay. What's the purpose of contribution cards?
Contribution cards track each employee's contributions and are essential for maintaining accurate records. The scheme outlines the preparation, currency, renewal, and custody of these cards, ensuring their proper maintenance and accessibility to both the employer and the employee. The scheme also details procedures for inspection of cards by members and authorities.
Chapter 7 deals with the administration of the fund, accounts, and audit. How are the fund's accounts maintained?
The scheme mandates separate accounts for administration, provident funds, and interest. It outlines the procedures for investing the fund's money primarily in government securities. The scheme also specifies the form and manner of maintaining accounts and the annual audit process, ensuring transparency and accountability in the management of the fund.
Good point. What are the provisions for interstate transfers of members?
The scheme allows for the transfer of a member's account when they change employment regions or establishments. This ensures that their savings are easily transferred regardless of their location. The process is outlined in detail, ensuring a smooth transition.
Right. How is the budget for the fund's administration prepared and approved?
The commissioner prepares an annual budget, which is reviewed and approved by the central board and then submitted to the central government for final sanction. The scheme also allows for supplementary budgets and budgetary reappropriations, providing flexibility in managing the fund's resources.
Chapter 8 covers nominations, payments, and withdrawals from the fund. How are nominations handled?
Each member can nominate one or more beneficiaries to receive their accumulations in case of death. The scheme outlines the rules for making, modifying, and invalidating nominations, ensuring that the members' wishes are respected. It also addresses situations involving minor nominees. The scheme also details the circumstances under which withdrawals are permitted, including retirement, disability, migration, and retrenchment. It outlines the process for making withdrawals and specifies the maximum amounts that can be withdrawn under different circumstances. It also addresses the payment of accumulations to the nominee or legal heirs of a deceased member. The scheme also provides for advances in special cases, such as unemployment, illness, marriage, or education of children. These provisions are designed to provide financial assistance to members during times of need. The scheme also specifies the methods for payment of withdrawals and advances, including postal money orders, bank transfers, and payment through the employer. The scheme also addresses the issue of inoperative accounts, where unclaimed amounts are transferred to a separate account. Finally, the scheme outlines the process for submitting claims and the timelines for settling them. The scheme also includes provisions for penalties for non-compliance with its provisions.
Chapters 9 and X cover miscellaneous provisions and special provisions for specific industries like newspapers and cinema. What are some key aspects of these chapters?
Chapter 9 addresses various aspects, including annual reports, penalties for non-compliance, and the conduct of business by the Central Board. Chapter X provides modifications to the scheme's application for specific industries, acknowledging the unique circumstances of these sectors. These provisions demonstrate the scheme's adaptability to different industrial contexts. The scheme also includes provisions for resolving disputes and doubts regarding membership and the application of the scheme. The scheme also includes provisions for the transfer of accounts in cases where employees change employers or establishments. The scheme also includes provisions for the protection of actions taken in good faith and for the delegation of powers. The scheme also includes provisions for the recovery of damages for default and payment of contributions. The scheme also includes provisions for the enhanced punishment in certain cases after previous conviction. The scheme also includes provisions for the application of certain provisions of the Income Tax Act. The scheme also includes provisions for the priority of payment of contributions over other debts. The scheme also includes provisions for the protection against attachment. The scheme also includes provisions for the power to issue directions. The scheme also includes provisions for the power to make rules. The scheme also includes provisions for the power to remove difficulties. The scheme also includes schedules that list the industries covered by the scheme, the matters for which provision may be made in a scheme, the matters for which provision may be made in the pension scheme, and the matters to be provided for in the employee's deposit-linked insurance scheme.
This has been a truly comprehensive overview. Thank you for your insightful explanation. This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. So we're diving into the world of EPFO, the Employees Provident Fund Organization. Sounds a bit dry, right?
Not at all. It's actually a massive social security net for millions in India.
Seriously? Billions? Wow.
Yep, and it's all about provident funds, insurance, pensions, the works.
Wow, so like a giant safety net for workers?
Exactly. And today we're looking at how employers play their part.
Let's start with the basics. This booklet talks a lot about Form 5A, the return of ownership. What's the big deal?
It's like the company's introduction to EPFO. It lists the owners, directors, who's in charge. Crucial for registration.
So like your business card for EPFO.
Precisely. And you have to update it whenever there are changes in ownership or company details.
Okay, then there's this whole DSC and e-sign thing. Sounds technical.
It's digital signatures, basically. DFC is like a digital certificate, and e-sign uses Aadhaar. Both are for online authentication.
So like digital ink for official EPFO documents.
Exactly. It makes everything secure and paperless.
Right, and then there's UAN, the Universal Account Number, and KYC.
KYN is a unique ID for each employee. KYC is linking that ID with Aadhaar, bank details, etc. It's all about verifying identities.
So like a digital ID card for your PF account.
Exactly, and it streamlines everything. Employers need to help their employees get this done.
Okay, let's talk money. Contributions, how does that work?
Employers pay monthly contributions based on employee salaries, up to a certain limit. It's mandatory for lower salaries, voluntary for higher ones.
So a percentage of the salary goes into the PF?
Yes, and it's split between the employer and employee. There are penalties for late payments.
What about when employees need to access their funds?
They file claims online. UAM and KYC are essential for this. Employers should help with the process.
So a smooth online process for withdrawals.
Ideally, yes, but it relies on everyone doing their part.
What happens if a company closes down?
They need to deregister their PF code. There are specific documents required for that.
And what are the overall responsibilities of employers?
Enroll eligible employees, keep records updated, assist with claims, and maintain confidentiality of login credentials. It's a big responsibility.
This booklet also has a whole section on eKYC seeding. What's the deal with that?
It's a detailed guide for employers on how to help their employees link their UAN with their Aadhaar and bank accounts. It's all about making sure the information is accurate and up to date.
So a step-by-step guide to make sure everything is linked correctly?
Precisely. It covers everything from activating UNs to resolving mismatches in information.
And then there's a huge FAQ section in the employee booklet. Anything particularly interesting there?
Lots of common questions about UAN activation, KYC seeding, online claims, and troubleshooting common problems. It's a great resource for employees.
So a handy troubleshooting guide for all things EPFO?
Exactly. It covers everything from password resets to dealing with employer issues.
And what if something goes wrong?
There are multiple ways to file grievances, online portals, email, even in person at EPFO offices.
So multiple avenues for resolving issues?
Absolutely. EPFO wants to make sure everyone's concerns are addressed.
And how can people connect with EPFO?
There's a website, a mobile app, social media, and even a toll-free number. They're trying to make it easy to reach them.
So multiple touch points for staying connected?
Exactly. They're making a real effort to be accessible.
And finally, this booklet mentions EPFO's nationwide presence. How extensive is their reach?
They have zonal, regional, and district offices all over India. It's a huge network.
So a truly national reach for this social security system?
Absolutely. They're aiming to cover everyone.
That was a great discussion. Thanks for breaking down the EPFO information booklets for us. It's clear that this organization plays a vital role in the lives of millions of Indian workers.
This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to today's discussion on the Employees Provident Fund Organization's information booklet for new employers. It's a complex topic, but vital for ensuring employee well-being.
Indeed. The booklet aims to streamline the process for employers newly covered under EPFO schemes, simplifying what can be a daunting onboarding experience.
It covers a lot of ground, from initial registration to handling employee claims and even penal damages. What struck you as the most crucial aspect for employers to grasp?
The importance of timely and accurate online contributions. The booklet emphasizes the severe penalties for non-compliance, including criminal charges.
Absolutely. Let's delve into the specifics. The booklet starts with registration and Form 5A, the return of ownership. Can you explain its significance?
Form 5A is crucial for initial registration and subsequent updates. It details the company's ownership, branches, and contact information, ensuring EPFO has accurate records. Failure to update it when changes occur can lead to complications.
So it's not just a one-time submission?
No, it needs updating whenever there's a change in ownership, address, bank details, or any other vital information. Think of it as a dynamic record of the establishment's key details.
The booklet also stresses the use of digital signature certificates, DSCs, and e-sign. Why are these so important?
DSC and e-sign are essential for secure online transactions. They provide authentication and prevent fraud, ensuring the integrity of all EPFO interactions. The booklet provides detailed instructions on registration and usage.
And what happens if an employer doesn't have these?
They won't be able to complete many crucial online processes, hindering their ability to manage employee contributions and claims effectively. It's a significant hurdle to overcome.
A major focus is on the universal account number, UAM, and KYC seeding. Why is this so critical?
UAN acts as a central hub for an employee's EPF information across multiple employers. KYC seeding, linking Aadhaar, bank account, and PAN is essential for seamless online services, including claim processing. The booklet provides step-by-step guidance for employers on facilitating this process for their employees. What are the potential pitfalls if KYC isn't properly seeded?
Good question.
Delays in claim processing, difficulties in accessing online services, and potential complications for employees trying to access their funds. It's in everyone's best interest to ensure this is done correctly and promptly.
The booklet dedicates a significant portion to contributions and the electronic shall income return, ECR. What's the key takeaway here?
Employers must submit ECRs on or before the 15th of each month. This is crucial for timely contribution remittance and avoiding penalties. The booklet details the contribution rates for EPF, EPS, and EDLI, highlighting the employer's responsibilities.
I see.
And what are the consequences of failing to meet these deadlines?
Yes, that's important.
Penal damages and interest, potentially escalating significantly with the duration of the default. As mentioned, there are also serious legal ramifications, including criminal prosecution.
The booklet also addresses member claims and the closure of a PF code. What's important for employers to know in these areas?
Employers need to ensure employees file claims online for faster processing. They also need to promptly forward transfer claims and attest to any manual claims. Regarding PF code closure, the booklet outlines the process for deregistration when an establishment ceases to exist, emphasizing the importance of timely action to avoid non-compliance flags.
So even if a company closes, there are still administrative steps to follow?
Absolutely. The process of closing a PF code is clearly defined to ensure all employee accounts are handled correctly and legally.
The booklet concludes with a comprehensive section on the employer's duties and responsibilities. What are some of the key highlights?
Enrolling eligible employees, ensuring contract workers are covered, maintaining accurate employee profiles, assisting with claims, and educating employees about the schemes and their benefits. The booklet emphasizes the importance of responsible management of employee data and the legal consequences of noncompliance.
It's a significant responsibility for employers.
It is. The booklet underscores the importance of proactive compliance to ensure both employee well-being and the smooth operation of the business.
Finally, the booklet outlines procedures for handling grievances and complaints. How does the EPFO address these?
The EPFO provides multiple channels for addressing grievances, including the EPF, IVPF online portal, CPG RAMS, email, and the monthly NITI Apkanika program. The booklet encourages employers and employees to utilize these resources to resolve any issues promptly.
So there are multiple avenues for seeking regressal?
Yes, the EPFO aims to provide accessible and efficient mechanisms for resolving any concerns.
The booklet also provides various ways to connect with the EPFO. What are some of the options available?
The Omang mobile app, a toll-free helpline, the official website, dedicated portals for grievances and payments, and social media channels. The booklet emphasizes the importance of using official channels to avoid scams and misinformation.
It's crucial to use official channels to avoid fraud. The booklet concludes by highlighting the EPFO's nationwide presence through zonal, regional, and district offices. What's the significance of this?
It demonstrates the EPFO's commitment to providing widespread access to its services across India, ensuring that employers and employees nationwide can easily access support and information.
Accessibility is key. Now let's briefly touch upon the information booklet for EPF members. What are some key benefits highlighted for employees?
The member booklet emphasizes the various benefits under EPF Scheme 1952, Employees Pension Scheme 1995, and Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme 1976, including Provident Fund accumulations, pension benefits, and insurance coverage. It also details the process of filing e-nominations, a crucial step for ensuring smooth benefit disbursement to nominees in case of the member's death.
E-nominations are a significant improvement over the old system. The member booklet also includes a comprehensive FAQ section covering UAN activation, KYC seeding, claim filing, and other common queries. What's the importance of this section?
It provides readily accessible answers to frequently asked questions, empowering members to manage their accounts effectively and independently. The booklet also outlines members' responsibilities, such as keeping their login credentials secure, monitoring their accounts, and reporting discrepancies.
Empowering members with knowledge is crucial. Overall, both booklets provide valuable information for both employers and employees, promoting transparency and facilitating smooth interactions with the EPFO. And what's your final thought on their effectiveness?
They are well-structured and comprehensive, effectively guiding users through the key processes and responsibilities. The inclusion of FAQs and clear explanations of penalties significantly enhances their practical value. However, continued updates and accessibility improvements would further enhance their impact.
Regular updates are indeed essential in a constantly evolving digital landscape. Thank you for this insightful discussion. This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to our discussion on the Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO, in India. We'll be exploring two information booklets, one for employers and one for employees, to understand the intricacies of this vital social security system. What are the key takeaways for the average citizen regarding EPFO benefits?
The EPFO offered a comprehensive social security net, encompassing provident fund, pension, and insurance benefits for millions of workers. For the average citizen, it means a secure financial future, particularly during retirement and in times of need. The system is designed to provide financial stability and support throughout an individual's working life and beyond.
The employer booklet emphasizes online processes. How does this digitalization impact employers' responsibilities and compliance?
The shift to online processes streamline registration, inspection, and payment procedures. Employers must be digitally savvy, utilizing digital signature certificates, DSC, or e-sign for authentication. This reduces paperwork and speeds up processes, but also requires a certain level of technical proficiency. Non-compliance can lead to penalties.
The employer booklet highlights the importance of UAN, Universal Account Number, and KYC, Know Your Customer seeding. Why is this so crucial?
UAM acts as a central identifier for an employee's EPF account, simplifying access to services. KYC seeding, linking Aadhaar, bank accounts, and PAN ensures accurate identification and facilitates seamless online claim processing. This is essential for both employers and employees to ensure smooth functioning of the system.
What are the key contribution requirements for employers under the EPF scheme?
Employers must contribute to the EPF, EPS, Employees Pension Scheme, and EDL, Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Schemes. Contributions are mandatory for employees earning up to $15,000 per month, with voluntary options for higher earners. Timely contributions via ECR, Electronic Child Income Return, are crucial to avoid penalties.
The employee booklet focuses on member benefits. What are some of the key advantages for employees?
Employees benefit from Provident Fund accumulations, pension benefits, including for dependents, and insurance coverage in case of death while in service. The system also offers partial withdrawals for specific reasons, online claim filing, and access to an e-passbook.
The employee booklet details the process of e-nominations. How does this simplify the process for beneficiaries?
E-nominations replace the traditional paper-based Form 2, allowing members to digitally nominate beneficiaries for their PF and pension benefits. This Aadhaar-based system streamlines the process, making it easier for beneficiaries to claim benefits in the event of the member's death.
Both booklets mention the importance of addressing grievances. What channels are available for resolving issues?
The EPFO provides multiple channels for grievance redressal, including the EPF, IEPF, Employees Provident Fund Internet-Based Grievance Management System portal, CPG-RAMS, Centralized Public Grievance Redress and Monitoring System, email, and dedicated helpline numbers. The system aims to provide timely and efficient resolution of complaints.
The employee booklet includes a comprehensive FAQ section. What are some of the most frequently asked questions regarding UAN and KYC?
Common questions revolve around UAM activation, KYC seeding, linking Aadhaar, bank accounts, and PAN, correcting discrepancies in member details, and accessing online services. The FAQ section aims to provide clear and concise answers to common queries.
What are the key responsibilities of employees regarding their EPF accounts?
Employees should activate their UAN, keep their login credentials secure, monitor their PF balance, report discrepancies, and utilize available online services. They should also file e-nominations to ensure their beneficiaries can easily access benefits.
The help desk page on the EPFO website provides additional resources. What kind of support is offered there?
The help desk offers information on accessing various file formats, screen reader access, and speech recognition support. It also provides contact information for further assistance and links to relevant resources for both employees and employers.
The help desk page lists various downloadable forms and documents. What are some of the key documents available?
The downloadable resources include claim forms, information booklets, presentations on EPF services, and FAQs. These documents provide detailed information on various aspects of the EPFO system.
Both booklets mention the extensive network of EPFO offices across India. How does this geographical reach impact accessibility for citizens?
The wide network of zonal, regional, and district offices ensures that EPFO services are accessible to citizens across the country. This extensive reach is crucial for providing support and assistance to a large and diverse population. Thank you for this discussion.
This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more. Welcome to today's discussion on the Employees Provident Fund Organization, a topic that's as vital as it is complex. We'll be delving into the intricacies of EPFO regulations.
Indeed. Many people interact with EPFO without fully grasping the nuances of its rules and regulations.
Exactly. Misunderstandings can lead to significant financial consequences.
Yeah, and that's why a thorough understanding is crucial.
Let's start with the employer's perspective. What are some key responsibilities they face?
Employers have a multifaceted role. They must enroll all eligible employees, ensuring compliance with contribution rates, even for those paid above the Rs, 15,000/ceiling if a joint request is made.
Right. And what about contract employees? Are there specific guidelines for them?
Yes, contract employees must be covered either directly under the principal employer or through the contractor with proper updates to the portal. Failure to enroll employees can lead to penal damages and even criminal charges. Serious stuff.
Significant penalties indeed. What about the process of submitting Form 5A, the return of ownership?
Form 5A is crucial for initial registration and must be updated whenever there's a change in ownership, address, or banking details. It's submitted online, digitally signed using DSC or e-sign.
The digital signature aspect is key to ensuring authenticity and security. Can you elaborate on DSC and e-sign registration?
Both DSC and e-sign are used for authentication.
DSC requires registration through the portal and submission of a request letter to the PF office. eSign, Aadhaar-based, simplifies the process for Aadhaar holders. Both methods are vital for various transactions.
Let's move on to UAN and KYC seeding. What's the significance of UAN for employees?
UA, the Universal Account Number, is a single permanent identifier for an employee's ETF account, allowing access to various services throughout their career. KYC, Know Your Customer, involves seeding Aadhaar, bank account, and PAN details to the UAM for seamless online access.
How does an employer facilitate UAN creation and KYC seeding for their employees?
Employers can create new UANs for employees through the portal. They also play a crucial role in approving KYC details seeded by employees using their DFC or eSign. Bulk processes are available for efficiency.
Okay, what happens if an employee already has a UAN from a previous employer?
The existing UAN can be mapped to the current establishment, provided the details match the Aadhaar information. The employer needs to verify and approve this mapping.
Right. And what are the consequences of incomplete or inaccurate KYC information?
Incomplete KYC can hinder access to online services, including claim filing. Inaccurate information can lead to delays and complications in processing claims.
Let's discuss contributions. What are the current contribution rates?
The mandatory contribution rate is 12% of the employee's salary up to Rs, 15,000/Rusts. Employers must match this contribution. Employees can voluntarily contribute more, but employers aren't obligated to match additional contributions. Contributions are made online via ECR, the Electronic Tell Income Return, by the 15th of each month.
So what are the implications of late or non-payment of contributions?
Late or non-payment results in penal damages and interest, calculated based on the duration of the default. Non-remittance of deducted PF contributions is a criminal offense. That's a big deal.
Moving on to claims. How are PF claims processed?
Employees should file claims online through the member portal. This requires a fully seeded UAN with Aadhaar and bank account details. Employers play a role in forwarding transfer claims promptly.
And what are the benefits available to employees under the EPF scheme?
Employees receive Provident Fund benefits for retirement, pension benefits for themselves and their families, and insurance benefits in case of death while in service. Partial withdrawals are also possible under specific circumstances.
Let's talk about e-nominations. What is the purpose of an e-nomination?
E-nominations, replacing the physical Form 2, allow members to digitally nominate beneficiaries for their PF accumulations and pension benefits. This ensures smoother claim processing in case of the member's death.
Okay, what are the steps involved in filing an e-nomination?
The member must link their mobile number to Aadhaar, log into the EPFO portal, update their profile, and then navigate to the e-nomination section. They can nominate multiple beneficiaries and specify the percentage share each will receive. The process concludes with Aadhaar-based e-signing.
Got it. Who is eligible to be a nominee?
Nominee eligibility depends on the member's marital status. Married members can nominate family members. Unmarried members can nominate anyone, but this nomination becomes invalid upon marriage. The latest e-nomination is always valid.
Let's address some frequently asked questions. What is UAN, and how can a member find their UAN?
UAN is a 12-digit number acting as a central identifier for an employee's EPF accounts across multiple employers. Members can find their UAN through the member portal using their registered mobile number or by contacting their employer.
How can an employee activate their UAN?
UAN activation is done online through the member portal using a registered mobile number and other details.
Okay, what are the steps involved in seeding KYC details with UAN?
Members can seed their Aadhaar, PAN, and bank account details through the member portal. Employer approval is required for these details.
And what are the benefits of having a fully seeded UAM with KYC details?
Fully seeded UAMs enable seamless access to online services, including claim filing without employer attestation.
What are the duties and responsibilities of an EPF member?
Members should keep track of their PF accumulations, activate their UAN, maintain password confidentiality, and report any discrepancies or technical issues. They should also file e-nominations to protect their beneficiaries.
How can members file grievances or complaints?
Grievances can be filed through the EPF IEPF portal, CPG RAMS, or by contacting the concerned EPFO office. The EPFO also holds monthly programs for grievance regressal.
And what are the various ways to connect with EPFO?
Members can connect through the ANG app, toll-free helpline, website, dedicated portals, and social media handles.
Finally, let's discuss the closure of a PF code. Under what circumstances does an employer need to close their PF code?
An employer needs to close their PF code when the establishment ceases to exist, for example, due to business winding up. They must apply for deregistration, providing supporting documents. Even without eligible employees, the employer can retain the PF code by paying a minimum administrative charge.
That was a great discussion. We've covered a lot of ground, from employer responsibilities to member benefits and grievance redressal. A comprehensive understanding of EPFO regulations is essential for both employers and employees to avoid potential issues and ensure smooth access to their benefits.
Absolutely. The information provided should serve as a valuable resource for anyone interacting with the EPFO.
Thank you for your insightful contributions.